what monster myth would interest you the most? What, if we were to do a future episode on one for you,
Okay.
what would it be?
I think Bloody Mary is something that really just scared the crap out of me when I was younger. And La Llorona is kind of the same thing, but Mexican folklore. About a woman who drowned her children in a river, and she cries out, and she's always trying to steal these children and drown them in rivers. So yeah, that's kind of scary. But Bloody Mary was a big one for when I was growing up. That was something that everyone would talk about, and I to this day don't look in mirrors or turn off the mirrors. I just go out of the bathroom. I don't do that.
So have you ever tried to summon Bloody Mary?
No, I might not be here today. If I did that.
Hidden within the shadows, throughout tales that span generations, monsters exist in many forms. Explore the folklore, embrace its most important lasting features, and delve into information of the unexpected. These are monster myths. What you know about monsters could save a life. Possibly even your own. I need you to help me inform the masses. I'm Kephen Sting, and tonight's Monster Myths features Bloody Mary. Greetings, new viewers and inconstant readers. This episode will be our first to not focus primarily on a cryptid. I've been paying attention to your emails and comments, and many of you have asked about a different kind of monster, one that exists between realities. Bloody Mary is one of the most well-known monsters in all of urban legend folklore. The evil spirit is tied into a mirror ritual that requires your participation in order to call her from beyond. But it doesn't sound like it's such a good idea. Let's start at the beginning. The ritual has several variations, but the most common one is this. First, you stand in the bathroom or in front of a mirror someplace. Then, light a candle, turn out the lights, and repeat the words Bloody Mary 3 times.
Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
At this point, she will appear in the other side of the mirror and do one of several things. Slash you with her razor-sharp claws, tear your eyes out of their sockets, or tear you apart and kill you. I've even heard that she has the power to drag you into the mirror to be trapped with her for eternity. Some of the other variations might include you spinning around while you say the words, or saying the words 13 times instead of 3. Another has you repeat the sentence, I believe in Mary Worth. Regardless of the version, it seems doing this ritual brings you closer to the spirit world and could even mean your death. Now, you know what's frightening? Bloody Mary is supposed to be covered in blood. I mean, dripping with it all over. Well, could it be that she can somehow change her form? I've heard some versions that say she can find a way to drip from your faucet or your shower and then come after you that way. Now, I'll admit that this is pretty spooky. However, once you get past the elements of the ritual, you start to wonder just who is this spirit you are dealing with? Who is Bloody Mary, and where does she come from? Most people who try this ritual will tell you who they think she is, but it could be reliant on where and when the story is first heard. There's a lot of folklore that involves Bloody Mary, and there are several actual figures throughout time who are connected with her. Do you have any thoughts on who the real Bloody Mary might be?
Wasn't she like a queen? I feel it probably has something to do with either English or French history.
I have no clue. I have no clue.
What I really know about it is the truth-wise is about her being a queen or something like that. Like she was a bad queen or something. Like she had a lot of people killed.
I think she's, a woman whose feelings are valid, especially in this political climate. I just want to get right out in front of that. Her feelings are as valid as anyone's feelings. Bloody Mary or Madam Mary or whatever. I don't want to upset her because that would be bad. I don't want to say she's angry or spiteful. I would never say that. I would never say that.
I've heard several stories of Bloody Mary, but the one that I feel kind of is more accurate is that she was a woman that was getting ready for her wedding day, and she was dressed in all of her white, and then she was murdered that day, stabbed or whatever, and she was just covered in red and was killed that day. And so then she haunts other people. So she comes through the mirror to attack whoever else is in the mirror. So that's my version, or what I remember of it.
In my research, I've identified 4 people who are most commonly associated with being the evil spirit. The first is Queen Mary Tudor, daughter of Henry VIII. She actually earned the nickname Bloody Mary in her lifetime. During her 5-year reign, she was responsible for killing nearly 300 Protestants at the stake in her attempts to convert England to Catholicism. Additionally strange is that she's known for having had 2 false pregnancies, getting to within a few weeks before her childbirth before she realized that there was no baby. Those that tie her existence into the Bloody Mary myth say she is actually searching for her lost children, ready to steal one if she must. Which is why some who believe this include in the ritual chant the phrase, "Mary, I've got your baby," in order to lure her out from hiding. The second most common identity is that of a certain Mary Worth, who has a hard history to dig up because it's not certain what time frame she comes from. The details of her tale are that she was once a very beautiful girl, and one day was in a terrible accident that left her face disfigured. Because of her vanity, those close to her would not let her look into a mirror for fear of how she would respond. When she finally sees her own reflection, she is so heartbroken she walks into a mirror to find her old reflection, vowing to disfigure anyone who came looking for her. Now, the third possible identity is that of Mary, Queen of Scots, who had an incredible case of unfortunate luck. You see, bad things always seemed to happen around her. And she didn't help it any by marrying her cousin, the Duke of Darnley. This lunatic ended up in a situation where he stabbed a man 56 times right in front of her. Later, the Duke died mysteriously, and Mary just happened to wed one of the main suspects in the murder. Eventually, she traveled to Queen Elizabeth I for protection. However, because of this, Queen Elizabeth feared an uprising, and so she had Mary imprisoned for 19 years. Due to conspiracies of her escape, Elizabeth then had Mary beheaded. Unfortunately, the decapitation wasn't a clean one, and apparently took several attempts. Ugh. And so we have come to our fourth potential identity, and that is, of course, the infamous Elizabeth Bthory. This member of Hungarian royalty is suspected of having tortured and killed hundreds of young women between 1585 and 1609. However, what she's most famous for is the legend that she bathed in the blood of virgins in order to keep her youth. Now, this may or may not be true, but it became a huge part of her folklore, and certainly allows her to be considered as a candidate for the grisly entity of Bloody Mary. So these are the most common, but let's face it, there are other variations on this myth. You may have heard of someone besides these four examples. I personally think there's a good chance that Bloody Mary isn't even one of these four, but is instead an unnamed demonic spirit that awaits innocent participants of the ritual. Now, this particular ritual of saying Bloody Mary 3 times in front of the mirror and all that has had an interesting time being passed along through generations of people. It's even been incorporated into film, books, and other media. The Clive Barker film, Candyman, is a prime example of this. Of course, it was transferred by word of mouth for a long, long time, but it was also the subject of countless chain letters. In the 1960s, there was a revival for it that typically took place at sleepovers and parties and as an adolescent party game. And then, with the dawning of the internet, tales like Bloody Mary spread like wildfire. When looking at where the ritual comes from, there is a similar one that seems to have been likewise practiced for centuries. Young ladies would gather a hand mirror and candle, and in the darkness they'd walk backwards up a staircase while gazing into the mirror. The claim was that the girl would look for a reflection behind her of one of two things. She hoped she would see the reflection of her future husband, or she dreaded that if she saw a skull or skeleton, that it would mean she were to die soon. Now, I can see how performing these kinds of rituals might be scary, but what few talk about is the real fear that dabbling into these acts just might encourage other demons to invade our reality. A person might be toying around with calling what they presume is Bloody Mary, but could actually be inviting other ghosts or spirits to appear. This act is actually considered very dangerous by some, and is recommended that you not even try it. But we know human nature better than that, and people are going to push the limits of their understanding, whether or not they are warned of the consequences. So I bring my question around to you. Have you ever tried to summon Bloody Mary? Were you alone or with others? Or were you one of those who started the ritual only to chicken out at the last moment? Let's check in with the public and see what we can find. Shall we?
Definitely not. Hell no.
Yes. I know. I think probably every third grader, fourth grade sleepover, you've done this. And it's terrifying to do it because you don't know what's going to happen. Because I think you're young and naive and you think that there is a possibility that something could happen.
I do remember being a little kid, 6, 7, 8 years old, being really terrified of going into the bathroom and looking in the mirror and saying Bloody Mary 3 times in a row. And I feel like I did it. I feel like I took my younger brother in and we said the name 3 times and we were really scared, but nothing happened. As a 30-something-year-old adult now, if it summoned the beverage, I would do it without question. But I have tried to summon it, I feel like on more than one occasion, but never have been successful.
I grew up with Bloody Mary and the whole light as a feather, thick as a board kind of thing, where you'd put like your fingers underneath somebody and you try and levitate them, supposedly. And for me, I guess those are things that I grew up with. But I've had friends that try that stuff, and it just freaked me out when they would say, "Yeah, I kind of saw something," but you don't know if it's like you wanting to see something or if you really did see something.
Now, if you did summon her and it really worked, what would you do if you were face to face with the evil spirit?
I'd close my eyes and hope for the best, but expect the worst. There's no running that. If it's a spirit, it's following you anywhere you go.
From what I understand is if you summon her, she basically just stabs you in the eye or something like that, which begs the question, well, why would you want to do that?
Then I would invest in some rhinestone eye patches, apparently.
Run, find a bright lit area, fight to the bitter end.
well, I'm a Christian and I believe in God and I believe in the power of the Holy Spirit, so I'd probably just ask God to take that spirit away from me. I have a lot of faith. I believe that would happen.
I would probably pass out. I'd be so terrified that I'd be seeing this woman, or maybe I would try and empathize with her and be like, I understand. Let's try and find who did it to you. I don't know. How do we resolve? What do you need?
I assume, not having done any research, that if it were anything like Beetlejuice, I could just say the name 3 more times and get rid of her.
It is really interesting to find out what people have to say on this subject. I know that if I were ever in this situation, Bloody Mary or whatever it was would have a good fight on their hands, because I'm not going down easy. Now, as I dug into this legend, I found out there's a long history involving humans and mirrors. Of course, the one we all know about is what happens when you break a mirror. You get 7 years of bad luck, right? But there's more. Many cultures have folklore that involves mirrors dating back to ancient times. For instance, they were often used in a magical ritual known as scrying, which is basically the remote viewing of another person or place and then communicating with it. But in addition to this, I found there's possibly hundreds of mirror rituals in the world. Believe it or not, most that I found deal with the dead in one form or another. For example, in the Jewish faith, it's an old belief to cover all of the mirrors in the house where a loved one has died. This is in case the spirit of the deceased is accidentally trapped by a mirror on their way into the afterlife. In other cultures, it's not uncommon to bury the dead with a mirror to keep their spirits from wandering. Or there's the fear that if a mirror breaks on its own, that someone in the household will die. Do you know of any mirror rituals in your family's history? Ask around. You may be surprised what you find. For our purposes in this episode, the question is, do you risk attempting to summon Bloody Mary into your home? I mean, you could very well be risking your own life if all of this is true. Now, I've just got this feeling that it doesn't matter if you believe in her or not. There's something you should not be messing with when you open yourself up to this kind of magic or superstition or whatever you want to call it. The potential for inviting in a sinister spirit is very good, and that could be very bad for you. And I wonder, if it is Bloody Mary you contact, that could very well be a moment you would regret. But if it's not Bloody Mary, then you've got to think, what exactly are you letting into this world? I think that there's a chance that it could be something much worse. So let me know what you think. Have you had any experience with this ritual or any other mirror rituals? Do you believe it's possible to tempt the spirits from the other side? Write to me, faithful viewers. Let me know how you feel about this stuff. You can contact me here or through my other media sites. And of course, remember to hit the subscribe button to stay informed with each new episode of my show. And hit the like button if you enjoyed this episode and want to see more. Monsters come in all shapes and sizes, and clearly some monsters don't require the physical realm to be destructive. Stay aware out there, for you never know what could be lurking outside your door. I'm Kephen Sting, and this is Monster Myths.